Hi, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is the start of a new Salesforce certified Tableau Desktop Foundation series. In this video, we will be covering the topic of explain what kind of information dimensions usually contain, which is part of the understand dimensions and measures under the understand Tableau Concepts section. Before proceeding with this video, there is a small request from my side. If this is the first time you're visiting my channel, please consider subscribing to my channel for getting the latest updates. Without any further delay, let us go into the video. The first thing to notice is that the topic is not simply stating what is a dimension. It specifically asks about the kind of information that dimensions usually contain. So, to answer this correctly, we need to understand what dimensions tell us about our data and how that information is used in Tableau. So, what exactly is a dimension? Dimensions generally contain descriptive or categorical information. They help us describe, identify, classify, or organize the data we are working with. Think about some familiar examples. A category tells us what type of product we are looking at. A customer name tells us who we are looking at. A country tells us where the data belongs geographically, and a product ID tells us which product we are looking at. So, dimensions generally answer the questions such as what, who, where, or which. They give us information that helps us understand the context of the data rather than simply telling us a numerical value. Let's look at the types of information dimensions can contain. One common type is categories. For example, there can be different categories in a data set like subcategory, segment, and ship mode. Dimensions can also contain names or labels such as customer name or product name. They can contain geographical information such as country, state, city, or postal code. And they can contain identifiers such as order ID or customer ID, which help us identify individual records or entities. These are all different types of information, but they have something in common. They help us describe, identify, classify, or organize the data. So don't focus only on the actual values inside the field. Focus on what information the field provides and how that information helps us understand the data. Now, let's compare dimensions with measures because understanding this difference is very important when learning Tableau. Dimensions generally provide descriptive or categorical information. Measures, on the other hand, generally contain quantitative values that we can analyze and aggregate. For example, category, region, and segment are examples of dimensions. Sales, profit, and quantity are examples of measures. Think of it this way: a dimension tells us how we want to describe or organize the data, whereas a measure tells us what numerical value we want to analyze. Next, let us look at a practical example. So, if we look at the sales value alone, we are asking how much sales we have carried out. If we look at sales by region, region is the dimension which gives us the context or grouping for that sales value. And the sales is the measure which gives us the actual value. So far, we have looked at dimensions as a concept. Now, let's see how this concept actually appears in Tableau Desktop, and more importantly, what happens when we use a dimension in a visualization. Here, I have Tableau Desktop connected to the sample superstore dataset. If we look at the data pane, we can see the dimensions section. Here we have the fields such as category, subcategory, region, product name, customer name, and segment. These are examples of fields that provide descriptive, categorical, identifying, or contextual information about our data. Now, let's look at one of the most important things dimensions do in Tableau. They affect how our data is divided and displayed in the view. Let's start with a very simple example. I'll place the sales bill on the column shelf. Tableau gives us a single aggregated sales value. Now I'm going to add region to the row shelf. Notice what happens. Now we have central, east, south, and west. The region dimension has divided our sales data into groups. Tableau is now calculating sales separately for each region. Let's replace region with category. Now our groups are furniture, office supplies, and technology. Notice that the measure hasn't changed. We are still analyzing the sales value. What changed is the dimension we are using to organize the analysis. So, when we use region, we are looking at sales by region. When we use category, we are looking at sales by category. This is one of the most important things to understand about dimensions. A dimension provides the grouping or context within which we analyze a measure. It allows us to move from simply seeing an overall number to understanding how that number is distributed across different groups. There's one important point I want you to remember. A dimension is not simply a text field. It's very common for dimensions to contain text such as customer name or category or region. But the definition shouldn't be reduced to dimensions or text fields. For example, there may be an field like an order ID, which is a combination of numbers as well as alphabets, and they can be considered as a dimension even though it is an identifier rather than a descriptive word. Similarly, some fields can contain numbers or dates and still be used as dimensions depending on how they are interpreted and used in the Tableau data model. So don't memorize dimension equals text. Instead, remember dimensions provide descriptive, categorical, identifying, or contextual information that helps us organize and analyze our data. Before we finish, let's quickly bring together the key points you should remember for the exam. First, dimensions generally contain descriptive or categorical information. They help us describe, identify, classify, or organize our data. In the sample superstore, examples include category, region, segment, customer name, and product name. Second, dimensions provide context for our analysis. When we combine a dimension with a measure, the dimension gives us the groups by which we can analyze that measure. For example, sales is a measure. If we add region we can analyze the sales by region. If we add category, we can analyze the sales by category. Third and the last point is, don't make the mistake of thinking that a dimension is simply a text field. Text fields are commonly dimensions, but the important thing is the role of the field, whether it is being used to describe, identify, categorize, or provide context to the data. So, if you see a question about what kind of information dimensions usually contain, think descriptive, categorical, identifying, or contextual information. And remember this simple idea: dimensions tell us what, where, or which. Measures generally tell us how much or how many. Now, let's check our understanding with three quick exam style questions. Question 1: which statement best describes the information usually contained in a dimension? Take a moment and pause the video to choose your answer. The correct answer is B: descriptive or categorical information. Dimensions generally describe, identify, classify, or organize the data. Let's make the next question a little more practical. You want to analyze the sales for each region. Which field provides the grouping? Think about the field which tells Tableau how you want to divide or organize the sales data. Once again, pause the video to choose your answer. The correct answer is C, region. Sales is the measure we are analyzing, while region is the dimension that provides the groups. Tableau can therefore show us sales for Central, East, South, and West. This is an important relationship to remember. The dimensions provide the grouping or context, while the measure provides the value being analyzed. Here's the final question: true or false? A dimension must contain text values. Think carefully about whether the dimension definition is actually based on the data type of the field. Once again, pause the video to choose your answer. The correct answer is false. A dimension is not simply defined as a text field. Many dimensions do contain text such as category, region, and customer name. However, they may be fields like customer ID, which can be considered as a dimension. Finally, what matters is the role of the field, whether it provides descriptive, categorical, identifying, or contextual information. So don't memorize dimensions equal text. Instead, remember dimensions help us describe, identify, categorize, and organize our data. If you are able to understand and answer these questions, you have understood the core idea behind this exam topic. This completes the video on dimensions in Tableau. So, when the exam asks what kind of information dimensions usually contain, think descriptive, categorical, and identifying information. Remember, dimensions provide descriptive or categorical context, while measures provide the quantitative values we analyze. I will meet you in the next video, in which we will take another exam topic and break it down in the same way. Until then, take care and bye.